eskolar. Ika'y dambana ng pag-ibig sa bayan at hanggang kasadyang matagumpay. Pag-iwan niyong mga hilig, lumagola sa puso't bibig, sabay-sabay na ipagsisigawan. Mabuhay ang iyong sentro eskolar. Mabuhay ka, mahal naming pamantasan. Mabuhay sa dakilang sentro eskolar. Ika'y dambana ng pag-ibig sa bayan. Hanggang kasadyang matagumpay. Sentro eskolar, sentro eskolar.
A pleasant morning to everyone and welcome to the StackLeague University Series Centro Escolar University Edition. I'm King Bartolome and I'll be your co-host for this wonderful morning. We also have Kenneth Silo with me as my co-host. Take it away, Kenneth.
Thank you, Sir King, and good morning to every Escolarian out there. I'm Kenneth Cilio from CEU Malolos, and I will also be your co-host today. May I request everyone in the stream to invade the comment section by typing your name and campus, as it is also a way of checking the attendance. Now, to give us the opening remarks, may I call on the officer in charge of the College of Accountancy, Management, and Technology of CEU Malolos, Dr. Maria Dina P. Aviñante.
Good day, everyone. Let me thank let me take this opportunity to thank and welcome all for joining this morning as we bring you the ICT opportunities and its emerging trends in the new normal. I believe that all our attendees today have seen the importance of ICT and how it faced the biggest challenge in adapting technology to help curb the pandemic. Amidst the challenging time, we have seen Lisa, the robot, to help in the remote communication of doctors and patients. Another is the citizen budget tracker to make an audit report of financial data, and many more. These innovations prove that ICT played a vital role in bridging the gap in the management of health systems, banking system, with all the technologies in making our lives simpler and convenient. I hope everyone will grab this opportunity to gain insights from our guest. I wish you all a meaningful morning, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Aviñante, for that inspirational message.
Furthermore, we have amazing resource speakers for this session today who will talk about IT career opportunities and shaping the future with IT trends today and beyond. But before anything else, we'd like to give you an overview of StackLeague, especially if it's your first time to join a StackLeague event. Everyone, please help me welcome Miss Casey Kalunod, our growth associate. Hi, Casey.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, King. Again, I'm Casey Kalunod. I will be giving a short introduction of Stack League. So, first, what is Stack League? So, Stack League is the Philippines' first year round competitive programming league with a mission to develop programming leaders that inspire a nation into coding. Now, since it's a competition, there will also be prizes. So, what are our prizes? Launched last March 16, this pioneering programmer league is gathering over 5,000 tech talents across the country to test their coding acuity with the promise of nationwide recognition, thousands of prizes, hundreds of tech job opportunities, and invitation only events. Also, from 200,000 pesos, the cash prize pool is now at 300,000 pesos. This will also continue to increase. Stack League wouldn't also be possible without our partners. We have our co presenter, Job Street, gold sponsors, Microsoft, Workbank, and Rakuten Viber, our silver sponsors, Amazon Web Services and Kalibrr, bronze sponsor Accenture, and media partners Inquirer.net and SparkUp. We'd also like to thank our community partners who help the league reach as many programmers in the country as possible. So here are our community partners. Now, for those who are new at Stack League, this is how the ranking system works. So you start at the bottom with 0 points, then you solve as many challenges as you can and earn the corresponding points. So the more points you get, the higher your ranking goes. And with a higher rank, the more opportunities are unlocked for you to access. Next, these are the supported programming languages of the league. We have JavaScript, Java, Python, C Sharp, and PHP. Next, we also have other highlights here at Stack League. We have the weekly ranking and treasure chest. So opened last September 5, Stack League Treasure Chest for team category is still ongoing. Team category was launched last July 11. Now you can compete with a team consisting of 3 to 5 members for points and prizes, where the total points of the team is the sum of all individual points earned by each member. And for individual players, Stack League Playoffs season has started last September 5. And here is a short clip of the Stack League Playoffs. So, Stack League Playoffs is a single elimination tournament featuring all monthly qualifiers. All weekly top 10 Stack League participants will automatically be invited to the monthly qualifier rounds. And our playoffs first monthly qualifier round will be held today at 7 p.m. You can watch the competition live at our Stack League Facebook page. Again, that's later, 7 p.m. So that's it for the highlights and mechanics of Stack League. If you're up for the challenge, then see you in the league. Thank you, and back to you, King.
Thank you, Casey, for introducing Stack League to our viewers and participants. So, moving forward, before the introduction of our first speaker, I would like to remind everyone: don't forget to type in your questions in the comment sections because we will be addressing them later at the Q&A session. Now, let me introduce to you our first speaker. He is currently the growth lead of Kalibrr, a careers platform for over 5 million young professionals and more than 18,000 of the most innovative companies in Southeast Asia. He started his career as a public school teacher under a global nonprofit organization, then moved on to handle the employer brand of a leading business process outsourcing company in the Philippines. In his current role, he ensures that more companies are able to build winning teams and more job seekers are able to find their dream job. Let's give it up for Mr. AJ Avanez. Good morning, Sir AJ.
Morning, everyone. Good morning, King. Thank you for that kind introduction. So I hope everyone's having a good morning, a good Monday morning. So let's start the week right with this event. So I'm gonna start with an overview of the IT work landscape. So I want to talk about how much the IT industry has changed in terms of the job seekers' perspective and in terms of the recruiters or hiring companies' perspective as well. And then I'd want to end with a couple of tips to help everyone in this webinar about how you can take advantage of those career opportunities. So to start, let me paint a picture of how much the recruitment landscape has changed, mainly because of the pandemic, right? So let's start with a quick forecast. Back in 2018, the World Economic Forum forecasted that 11,000 people will be entering the workforce every day for the next 15 years. Now, what this means is that essentially, for from 2018 all the way to 2033, 11,000 job seekers will be entering the workforce. So you can just imagine how stringent the competition is going to be. So imagine you as a job seeker down the line, you're going to be competing with 11,000 more people for jobs every day for the next 15 years, right? Second, I want to point out that the future of work has been fast tracked because of COVID. All the things that we were just discussing before, like remote work, video interviews, hiring remote workers, all of those were fast tracked because of COVID, and all of those we have been experiencing today already. Okay. Third, remote work has seen a rise primarily in the Philippines. So even back then, the country was known for being the BPO capital of the world. But since then, we've identified that BPOs usually target the bigger companies, the AT&Ts, the Comcasts of the world. But there have been studies saying that there are still 30 million SMEs globally who have yet to outsource. And these SMEs, these companies, are now looking to work with remote workers mainly because of cost cutting measures that they are implementing. So they still need to build their teams, they still need the resources, but since they have lesser budget, they're more willing to outsource to countries like the Philippines. Locally, we've also seen growth in different sectors. So who would have known that positions like data scientists, AI specialists, UX designers are going to be jobs that are available for everyone today, right? 3, 5 years ago, these jobs were non-existent. So we can just see that more and more jobs are coming up, mainly taking advantage of technology, of applications that are available, of channels that are needed by companies to continuously grow their business. In terms of what's available in the industry, for those of you who are not yet familiar, the Philippines is actually a growing technology bed for startups, right? I'm sure at least one of these applications or platforms you've used, maybe Canva, maybe Coins, for sure Lazada or Shopee. You've used a couple of these. And more startups, whether they're built locally or global startups entering the Philippines, are coming up. And this is a great opportunity to explore the jobs that these companies have. Okay. Now, if you're more concerned or if your dream companies are the bigger companies, maybe because you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I want to work in a startup because it might not be as stable. Good news, because established companies, big conglomerates, are also starting to evolve. So the likes of Ayala, SM, Aboitiz, Smart, they're also building their technology infrastructure. They're building their innovation teams. And IT talents, IT jobs are slowly becoming widespread even in these bigger companies. Okay. Now, going into the behavior of job seekers, it's interesting to note that job seeker behavior or job seeking in general has actually become more competitive, right? In the past year, so from March 2020 till March 2021, we've seen a 16% increase in overall applications in the past year. Now, there are several factors that could have contributed to this. One, syempre, the fresh graduates coming in are entering the market, so they're also applying. Second, job seekers who have lost their jobs because of the pandemic are also re-entering the workforce and applying to positions that are available. So, in connection to the forecast of the World Economic Forum that there are 11,000 people coming into the workforce every day, now you're also competing with job seekers who are already in the workforce but have lost their jobs because of COVID. And in terms of industries, we've seen that these 5 industries are the most competitive in terms of the number of applications. So careers in the sciences, so anything related to data science, data analytics, business analytics, research and development, has seen a 210% increase in applications. So maybe just to imagine if before one job in the sciences is only getting 100 applications, now those jobs are getting 300 applications, right? So you're competing with a lot more. Other industries like the health and medical industry, general services, customer service are also experiencing increase in applications. Lastly, and I think this what's directly impactful for everyone, the IT and software industry has seen a 56% increase in applications. So back then, if there were 100 applicants applying to a single job, now there's 156 more people applying to those jobs. Okay? But at the same time, we also see that the supply for jobs are also increasing. So yes, the number of job seekers are growing, but it's good to know that job openings are also becoming more available, right? At the same time, we've also observed that key job functions continue to experience challenges in hiring. Mainly, it's becoming more difficult to get qualified candidates. One of the behaviors we've seen in the past year is that a lot of job seekers are applying to any job, virtually any job that's available. So, for example, if I'm an IT graduate or if I'm IT professional, I would apply to IT jobs, yes, but I'd also start applying to jobs outside of IT. May it be in marketing, may it be in accounting, customer service, even. And this is, I guess, again brought about by the quote unquote desperation that the pandemic has brought about, right? So again, I want to highlight industries that see a lot of job openings. So IT and software and sciences are still leading industries. So one job in an IT and software company only gets around 7 qualified applications, right? So this is a good thing. This is an opportunity that I want everyone of us here to remember, because this presents a chance, a possibility for us professionals to reskill and upskill so we can remain relevant, right? So imagine if you're applying to an IT and software job and you're qualified, you're only competing with 7 or 6 more people. So your chances of getting the job is a lot higher, right? Just the disclaimer there is you should be qualified for the role. Okay. I also want to paint a picture of how much the skills that recruiters, that HR professionals deem to be important has changed just in the past 3 years. So back in 2018, as you can see here, these were the top 10 skills that recruiters deem every candidate should have for them to be successful in the role. So as you can see, a lot of them are soft skills, right? Moving on to 2022, a lot of them are still soft skills, and a lot of them were still the skills that recruiters were looking at back in 2018, right? But we've seen 2 additional skills coming up. One, technology design and programming, and 2, systems analysis. Again, this was the thinking brought about by the pandemic. So yes, you have technology, yes, you have people, but the best candidates, the best employees are those who are able to effectively marry technology and human resources into a beautiful solution. In terms of system analysis, we've seen that problems are interrelated. Problem 1 is connected to problem 2 connected to problem 3. And so when solving a problem in the company, you're essentially not just solving one problem, but all the other problems interconnected to it. Thus the importance of systems analysis. So I also want to help everyone imagine what recruiters are experiencing. So yes, we are all job seekers here, but it's also important for us to take on the perspective of a recruiter for us to be able to tailor fit or to improve our applications. Okay? So technologies change at breakneck speed. Okay? In 2011, these were the top 5 most in-demand programming languages. So Java, C++, C, JavaScript. In 2015, so just 4 years after, okay, this has changed. So Java, still an in-demand programming language, but the rest have changed. So now companies were looking at PHP, JavaScript, Python, and Objective-C. Okay? In 2020, okay, this has changed further. Okay? So Python, Java, PHP still in demand. Great. But Swift and React are now new programming languages that companies are looking for. Right? So technologies, programming languages, platforms, tools change a lot. In startups, they can change monthly, even weekly. And so the skills, the things that you're learning right now might not necessarily be needed in the future. So, and what's important is to continuously upskill yourself. That's one. And second, hone in the soft skills that I mentioned a while ago. So it's important for you to be able to learn new things, to adapt in order for you to remain relevant as a job seeker. Okay? Now, I want to show you an example of what recruiters experience when they're hiring for an IT candidate. So say I'm a recruiter, I'm looking for a candidate that knows AngularJS, right? So looking into my hiring platforms, I see 503 candidates. So quite a lot, right? But the hiring manager that I'm working with tells me that he needs candidates that know AngularJS for more than 5 years, or at least 5 years. And so from 503 candidates, I'm down to 144 candidates. Still a lot, still a good amount, and I feel like I can still be able to hire a candidate from 144, I mean. Okay? But since our company is based in Metro Manila, I can only hire candidates within the region. So from 144 candidates, now I'm down to 69, right? And now as a recruiter, I'm nervous because 69 is not a lot of candidates. Right? Add to that I can only, of course, hire from candidates who are actively looking, right? So from 69, they go further down to 40, right? And again, as a recruiter, this makes me worry because 40 candidates might not be enough for me to hire the candidates that I need, right? And so again, I want to present this as an opportunity, right? To continuously upskill, to continuously hone yourselves, not just in a specific programming languages, but in terms of your learning agility and in terms of your critical thinking. Okay? Because how do you take advantage of these career opportunities? Okay? One, I can't stress this enough. Learn skills. Yes, you are currently students, so you're currently learning from educational institutions, right? But there are other platforms, other tools, other websites that you can visit to upgrade yourself further. There are online schools, YouTube is a free tool, Udemy, Skillshare. These are platforms where you can learn new skills. Okay? There are also non-traditional institutions like boot camps, uh, those companies offering short-term courses like Esquelabs and General Assembly. So these are usually 8 to 9 week courses that allow you to learn the basics. Right? In addition to learning the skills, it's also important to be certified for those skills. Okay? Certifications are usually free. So you can check Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle. So you can just take the exams for you to be certified and for recruiters to see that you are knowledgeable and that you have experience working with these platforms. Third, it's important to demonstrate your skills through experience. Yes, you're learning, but recruiters need to know that you can apply those skills into actual work. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So Stack League, hackathons, competitions like Stack League are one of those things. So you're able to showcase how you can apply theories into actual work. Okay? Taking on gig projects, volunteer projects, right? If you have friends that maybe need a website for their e-commerce store, volunteer, create that e-commerce webpage for them, create that e-commerce platform for them, right? If you can, take a job for learning rather than pay, right? There are startups, companies who might not offer as big but provide good learning opportunities. So if you can, go to those companies. And lastly, you need to make sure that your skills and experiences are discoverable. So make online career profiles, Kalibrr, LinkedIn, make online portfolios. So build your cases, your codes in GitHub, share them so people can see them, write about it in Medium, in WordPress, so people can follow your journey, right? Again, this allows you to practice what you know and put it into writing. Okay. Just an additional tip, okay, what you think are important and what's not. So again, hackathons, experience in programming contests, volunteer work are all great. Recruiters love this, right? What's not as important as you might think is your degree, right? Yes, you might be an IT graduate now, but someone who's a non-IT graduate but continues to upskill, continues to learn, can take on the same IT job that you are eyeing for. Okay? So don't be complacent just because you're an IT student. Lastly, what's not important at all is experience in any outdated programming language or any tedious technology, unless that's what the company is looking for. Okay. I want to end with this. In the future of work, demonstrating what you can do is going to be a lot more important than where or what you studied. So learn, be visible, and share what you learn and apply what you learn. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation and open the floor for any questions or any clarifications that everyone might have.
Thank you so much, Sir AJ, for that inspirational and educational talk. I hope Sir AJ has imparted essential knowledge for you to leverage career opportunities amidst the new normal.
All right, so now we open the floor for questions. While waiting so we will be checking the comment section in our YouTube live stream. So while waiting for the questions of our participants, so let's just I have to give Sir AJ a quick question lang or a starting question
Sure.
to ignite this conversation. So my question would be, Sir AJ, is pandemic has greatly affected um, the mental health of a lot of people, especially in the industry today. So, what is your advice for people who feels demotivated this pandemic?
Um, all right. So I think I am gonna come from a more personal standpoint. I think um, if you're feeling, I'm not sure if everyone has read that an article that got viral about the feeling that everyone's experiencing right now called languishing, right? You're feeling that you're just cruising through, you're not achieving anything, you're not as motivated as you were before. And if you're experiencing that, if you're feeling down, I'd suggest taking it a bit slow. So, don't pressure yourself as much, right? Um, just continue doing what you're doing. Don't stop. Like one step is always better than taking no steps at all. So, trying to get by is not necessarily bad. Surviving is not necessarily bad. Because when you force yourself too much, you get burnt out, and that's worse because the drawback is a lot worse as well. So just making sure that you do the things that you're supposed to do at the pace that you can manage to do them would be, I think, the advice that I can give to everyone who's experiencing that.
All right. Thank you, Sir AJ, for that very insightful opinion on what to do when you're feeling demotivated during this time. So, okay, so we have a question from Hosh. So, what is your practical tip po para we stand out among all the other job seekers kahit na we are just starting our career or maybe this is for graduating students?
Right. So maybe two to three things that I can give you. One, as I mentioned, make sure to augment your profile, right? So even if you're undergraduates, there's a lot of opportunities that you can play with. Okay, take internships. That's really one of the main advice that I can give. Even if it's not required by your course, or even if you've already taken the required internship hours from your course, try to take on additional ones, right? Especially if your time can manage it, because this gives employers the impression that this person, this candidate, has initiative and has already experienced what's it like to be in an actual work setup. Second, in relation to showcasing your experience, is trying to be more proactive. So reaching out to actual recruiters. So try to do a little bit of stalking. For example, you have your dream companies. So you want to work in, for example, Gcash. Find a recruiter in Gcash or even a fellow developer, a fellow IT professional, and just start a conversation, maybe via LinkedIn, via Facebook, and just connect with them, get their experience, get a feel of what they're doing, how they got into the job, and what you can do to further hone yourself, right? And when you get to an interview, make sure that you have practice, make sure that you do well so that recruiters remember you. So I guess those three things would be the most uh, applicable and the most actionable as well.
All right. Thank you, Sir AJ, for that useful tips that definitely these graduating students can leverage when they graduated. So first, you really have to augment your profile or make sure that your portfolio is filled with your experiences, even though you're not graduated yet. So aside from that one, make sure that you research and be ready for your interviews when you go to your applications, so that the recruiter would know that you're really interested in getting that job or that position. All right, so let's hover around with our comment sections. There's a question from Miss JZ Tan. So, what would be the top five job opportunities that we should target?
All right. So I assume you're asking from just the perspective of an IT graduate. Um, well, number one would of course be software developers. So there's a lot of junior software developers that are available right now in the market. So that would be one. Um, QA would also be a good starting point. If you don't want to get into the nitty gritty of like coding and whatnot, there's a lot of technical support representative roles that are also available in the market. So those three would be the top. Software developers has a lot of categories. So there's one for mobile, there's one for front end, there's one for back end. All of those are in demand, so you can really try to target each one or concentrate on just one sub aspect.
All right, thank you, Sir AJ. I think for those who are aspiring or graduating right now, make sure that your interest is I mean, take note of that. That the in jobs for this now is the software developer and QA. So take note if you're really interested or if you wanted to land a job after you graduate, make sure that you're considering this I mean this job post. All right, so let's move forward to our live stream comments again for questions. All right. If you wanted to ask Sir AJ questions, you can again put it in the comment sections. Hmm. Okay, I think that's it for our comments for our first year AJ. Again, thank you, Sir AJ, for the lessons and inspiration you've shared with us today. And I hope that these graduating students are who are watching right now would be able to leverage these opportunities or career opportunities and these useful tips that they can use when they went to the professional world of IT industry. Again, thank you, Sir AJ, for imparting your knowledge and your insights to these graduating students.
Thanks, King. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Moving forward to our second speaker. So, again, before I introduce to you our second speaker, may I remind everyone to please put in your comments, put in your questions in the comment section so that later on we will be addressing them. So, our second speaker, he is a Python developer who worked as a freelance developer prior to joining his current company, which is NTT Philippines. He attended the University of Southeastern Philippines in Davao City, where he got his degree in computer science. While a student, he represented his university in various programming and hackathon competitions and developed his interest in playing Dota. An explorer by heart, he believed that IT students and professionals should be dynamic and always ready to take on current IT issues, trends, and challenges. Everyone, please help me welcome Sir Jonel Getigan. Good morning, Jonel.
Good morning, King, and good morning, StackLeague, and especially to the students, faculty, and alumni of CEU. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, as mentioned, we will be tackling shaping the future IT trends today and beyond. Now, previously, prior to the pandemic, the IT industry has already moved towards motivating different industries. As mentioned, you have Coca-Cola, which is a bottling company, but gearing towards IT. And as mentioned, also different other industries are gearing towards the IT, um, promoting their IT infrastructure. Now, in the midst of the pandemic, we've seen that there is this increase in terms of utilization of the IT infrastructure. You have the work from home setup from the employees. You have the um, module and then online classes for the students, and also for every individual. We are just connected virtually. So all these things will shape the future, and we have to know the trends that are available to us today and beyond. So, as mentioned by EJ, there are a lot of opportunities to learn, and you have to upskill things. And one of that will you can see something that you can upskill from the trends that we'll be discussing today. But before we go into the actual trends, let's go back to where we are. Bakit nandito tayo ngayon? So let's go to the Industrial Revolution. So the first Industrial Revolution has transformed our economy from agriculture to the industry. So nakikita natin from this period, ginagamit natin yung kamay natin. So basically physical labor. But we've transitioned to more mechanized because we've used steam engine, we have coal. So the transportation like train, other locomotives has been apparent in this stage. And then the second revolution was on the mass production. So in the industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, we've um, we've invented electricity, oil and gas, telephone, airplane. So basically, nakikita dito yung factories and a lot of industries are booming because of that. And actually, quite interestingly, CEU was about in this era. So the CEU was established on 1907. So ang tagal na po ng school na niyo. So wala pang computers, CEU was there already. And then thirdly, on the third technological revolution, nakita natin yung paglabas ng electronics and computers. So dito na we've seen a lot of computers and electronic devices. And the fourth revolution would be on the advent of internet and more on the interconnectedness of different devices. So we haven't just seen the computers, we have now the mobile phones, we have now the smartphone and other things. And because of that, what excites us is that because of this era, there are a lot of opportunities for us, as mentioned by AJ. Across every industries, our IT opportunities are there. And in fact, when we see about the companies, there are at least six already trillion-dollar companies. You have Microsoft, you have Apple, Microsoft, you have Saudi Aramco, you have Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, and then you have Amazon and Facebook. So this among these six companies that are $1 trillion worth, five of them are technology companies, excluding the Saudi Aramco, which is oil and gas. And you could this is interesting as Facebook, which is just 17 years of age, has got into this $1 trillion companies. And on the other side, we're expecting of about $4 trillion of global spending in 2021, and most of that spending will be on devices we have seen a 4% growth against the 2020 data. And overall IT infrastructure, we've seen a growth of 8.4%. So this growth means that there are not just only opportunities for the IT industry, but there are trends or there are processes that are making this industry competitive. Now, on the we know about trending, no? So we have trending in Facebook, we have trending in Twitter, and even yung trending ng mga kapitbahay natin. So we know all these things. So trending are those napapag-usapan, nababalita, and all. And as IT professionals and students, this is also something that we need to know. What are the trending in the IT industry? Well, number one would be cloud computing. These are cloud services that is over the internet. So ang very basic example is that pupunta ka ng computer shop. So yung computer shop, ang bibilis ng mga computer, ang mamahal nila. So you're talking about RTX na driver, you are talking about Ryzen 7, tapos mechanical keyboard. So if bibilin mo siya, actually mahal siya. So but you can utilize these resources on demand pag pupunta ka by hour. So it does the same business model in terms of the computing, the cloud computing. So you can utilize resources that would otherwise be not available to you prior to years before. So one example is for application development. So you say if you will develop project on the left side, you'll see monolithic architecture. So ang nangyayari dito is that your UI, your front end, your back end, and your database are all hosted in one component, say sa computer mo lang. So this is problematic kasi if may nangyari sa computer mo, or for example, there are in the database may not unnecessary na things na hindi mo ina-expect, then the whole process would collapse in a way. And then you will have to debug all these things. You will have to debug the UI, you will have to debug the business logic, and then to the database. So dun po pala makikita na, okay, database pala yung problema. But in the cloud development, where we can utilize resources in the cloud or over the internet, you can actually delineate these things. So for example, in the university, we have English department, which just handle the English studies. We have the computing department, which will handle the CS or IT students. Then nangyayari din ito sa microservices over the cloud. So you can delineate your database to one cloud, to one service in the cloud, and then you have the different logic also. And basically, nakikita nyo dito na if, for example, may mangyaring di inaasahan in your database, then you can actually just pinpoint kung saan yung problema kasi you have just one connection of that database. So hindi siya parang i-check mo lahat. Now, what's interesting in the cloud computing model is that we actually have three models. So yung the left side, which is the on-premise, which is the monolithic approach, you actually have you will manage all the layer from the network up to the application layer. But on the infrastructure as a service model, you will have resources from the OS up to the application. So yung sa baba, from the networking to the visualization, handled na yun ng cloud providers. So you don't have to worry about i-maintain yung mga ganun. So you just have to, meron ka lang access from the OS to the application layer. So this infrastructure level is mainly handled by the IT administrators or the system administrators kasi you are talking about OS and file management systems and all. And then the second model would be the platform as a service. So you will have not you will not have access to the OS and to the runtime layer, but you will have access to the data or the database and then to the backend services of the application. And then for the last one, software as a service, wala ka talagang access to from the network to the application layer. You're just using this service as an end user. So an example of this would be Google Drive. So sa Google Drive na nakaka-upload ka ng files, nakaka-create ka ng files, but hindi ka pwedeng you can't make any modification in terms of the platform, in terms of making the back end something like gusto kang gawin. You can't do that. You're just an end user. But we're lucky but that there are services that are free for us, like Google Drive. Now, in terms of cloud computing, there are actually cloud computing vendors you have that are prominent. You have AWS, you have Azure, you have Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, which is interestingly the first cloud computing service company that has opened its data center in the Philippines. And then the next one would be Huawei Cloud. So in any opportunity at the moment, you will actually more often than not note that these recruiters will actually gusto nila itong mga experience na ganito. So have you experienced AWS computing or Azure or cloud or any cloud services for that matter? So this is an edge. So if you want to upscale or if you want to make some experimentation on the trends that we have now, the first one will be to know the cloud computing services. Now, the next one is that this is a use case scenario. Say in your software engineering subject, sinabi ng professor mo, sige, gawa tayo ng shortest app route na within Metro Manila lang. So if you're thinking about algorithms, so sasabihin mo, madali lang yan, you can use Dijkstra's algorithm. Tapos, pero ang problema is that you will need a routing app. So you have to have the map, you have to have the road, to basically just the something that the user can actually make use of. So it will be very challenging for you as a student. So what you can actually do is like tadan, Google Map. Google Map has all these features already for you. So you can utilize this on top of your requirements. So you can make modifications and all. But how is that even possible? How can you make modifications to Google Maps? Google naman yung may-ari nito. How is that possible? Now, if you look into developers.google.com/maps, you will actually see all the services that you can actually tweak to parang gawin mo siya, i-edit mo siya according to your use case. Now, ang sinabi natin is that we are using or will be creating a routing app. So more often than not, you will use the routes API or the routes segment. So you have there the different, if you will see yung mga circles nandito. So you have the API, you have the API, and then the API. So the next one would be the application programming interface or the API. It's basically a communication interface for software. So ang dami ng software na nakikita natin ngayon, not just only Facebook, Twitter, but the essential question is how do these softwares communicate? So paano nakaka-communicate si Facebook kay Twitter and vice versa? Now, one basic example really in the API side is if mag-login ka. So kahapon, I tried to log into the Pinterest, but wala naman akong Pinterest account. So that's why I have this option. I can either go with logging with my email and password, or I can log in via Facebook and Google. So what happens here is that Facebook and Google will have their identification API provided so that whenever you log in with their partner, say this Pinterest, they will identify you as, oh, tama, si Jonel yan. We know that may account siya sa Facebook. And then they can authenticate now to Pinterest a login mechanism. So for example, more formally, ang nangyayari is that the web app, which is the Pinterest, will request now the API available for either Google or Facebook. And then when the API is triggered, then you have different responses. First is if makikita nyo dito, we have this choose an account. So I've chosen Google here. So sabi ni Google, okay, sige, log in to your Google account. Now, if Google can authenticate the credentials that you're using, then it can respond to Pinterest that, oo, si Jonel yan, kilala ko yan, he's a user. So since Pinterest and Google are partners and they trust each other, then Pinterest would basically just, okay, sige, maglalagin tayo as Jonel. And just in an overview of the two approaches in terms of web APIs, we have actually two. We have simple object access protocol, and then you have the representational state transfer, or the REST. What differentiates the two is that the SOAP is a protocol while REST is architectural design. So si SOAP is a more secured manner kasi if makikita nyo dito, it has an additional layer of SOAP standard. So si SOAP is meron siyang standard na ginagamit, so it's more secure. Before it can actually be handled by the server, that dapat nandun yung data and then the SOAP. And then the rest can actually just present all this data from the client to the server. So essentially, hindi naman sinasabi na hindi secure si REST, but REST is, by design, SOAP is more secure. That's why in the security is being parang leveraged by financial institutions or financial services, telecommunication services, and payment gateways. Whereas for the rest of the use case, they would use REST. And in terms of so paano yung data, paano ba tinatransfer, bakit sinasabi natin mas mahirap or mas secured si SOAP? So a simple request would be this one. So SOAP is XML based. So ito yung pang request natin. So even if maliit lang yung data mo, but data request, ganito talaga since we have standard. But in the rest, you can just send this JSON format. You have the city and then the state. So it will have, of course, some overhead in terms of processing, but it has its pros and cons. And the SOAP security is mainly is the primary motivator for different industries such as finances in terms of security. Now, the next one would be Internet of Things. Now, we've mentioned that in the advent of technology, and especially that we have 5G at the moment, we are extending now Internet of different sets of devices. So you're not just talking about computers, servers, and then mobile phones. We're talking about different things, as we call it. So you can have, for example, a simple watch. So pag may orasan ka, or you have watch, so it just tells you the time. But when you have smart watch, as for example, in this case, Apple Watch, it does more than that. It can text you, or it can make notifications. It will send, say, email or sort, and then it can actually track your health because of the sensors available to it. So this set of devices can exchange data over the internet and to the different systems. And then in terms of the application, we're actually seeing 40 key themes. You have the smart home, you have the wearables, yung nakita natin na smartwatch. We have the connected cars. So Tesla is one. Aside from making the vehicles electronic, they're making it smarter than ever before. So hindi naman natin sinasabi na walang electronic devices noon, but ngayon, these cars can communicate with each other or with the owner via the internet. And then we have also smart cities. So nakikita natin yung, for example, if may video footage tayo, so you can make insight of that if may traffic ba or something, and then that can communicate to the central, say, local government to say na, we will make transition of the traffic kasi may nangyari ditong aksidente. And also you can actually say, you can actually also find application sa smart cities in terms of smart parking. Kasi for example in Metro Manila, for example, ang sikip actually. So we can utilize this IoT applications such as sensor, cameras, and all to augment or to solve this kind of challenges. Now, what's exciting about IoT is because IoT means data. So in 2018, the estimated amount of IoT devices was around 20 billion. And then that will grow to about 50 billion by 2030. And in data, you can actually gain insight. So for example, dun sa Apple Watch natin, it will have sensors to detect your pulse and all. So you can make or Apple can make an application tailored to, for example, if my diabetes ka, they can notify you na, ay, you potentially will have the diabetes because of this possible factors. So it makes us smarter in a way because of the available data generated to us. So this data can be processed and all so that we can gain insight from it. And also, what's interesting about IoT is that we're nakikita natin na there will be about 50 billion IoT devices, and mayroon din tayong makikitang weird na mga devices, which is, for example, yung Happy Fork. So it is a Bluetooth-enabled smart fork that vibrates when it senses you're eating too fast. So if you are kind of nagda-diet or something, so Happy Fork would be something for you. But I think it would not be really useful in the Filipino settings kasi makarice tayo eh. So smart spoon would be something that we would maybe use. But siguro sa Western countries, they would prefer the fork over the other. But well, yeah, that's something. So we are expecting IoT devices to not just leverage like sa smart TV, even for example, siguro sa different, so you have smart bed, makikita siguro natin yan and so on. So it will be weird or in a way, but you will be seeing that in the near future. But if you are not in the consumer side, that you will just use you will utilize this data, you can be the producer. You can make the IoT devices in itself by using microcontrollers. You have Raspberry Pi for that, you have Arduino, and then you have Node MCU. So basically, yung mga computer engineering students would have much knowledge on this one. The next one would be big data analytics. So we are getting value from big data. So nakita natin, we've discussed na marami ng computers, ang rami ng interconnectedness ng software, ang dami ng IoT devices. Now, because of this voluminous amount of devices and data, we can make utilization of that through big data analytics. But because of that, before that, we'll know first the three V's of big data. You have the volume. So, gaano ba kalaki yung data na in-expect natin? Is it in KB up to in petabytes? So, it really depends. But for example, even if it's in the kilobyte parameter, say you have thousands of computers generating kilobytes of data, then aggregate that, it will still be a big data. And then the next one would be velocity. So gaano ba kabilis na puproduce itong data na to? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it real time, or is it near real time? So you have to have a check also on that. And also interesting is the variety. So we're just not talking about data as in the database, which is the tables and all. We are also talking about images, videos, emails perhaps, and different kind of data formats. So the role of big data analytics is to augment or to process this big data, even if it's too large, even if it is generated in real time, or even if there are a lot of formats available. Say you are making insight about an email and then a picture and so on. But in terms of the big data tech, we're actually seeing four key themes. We have data mining, we have data storage, we have data analytics, and then we have data visualization. So just a run through, data mining is we are getting raw data, that was we store it through the storage, we analyze it through the analytics, and then because of the insight that we've gained, we are now making visualization. Now we're focusing on the analytics side because dito mas interesting yung how do we actually gain insight? How is advanced analytics being used? So you have statistical tools, of course, na mangyayari dito, but more than that, there are a lot of things that you can actually also see. And then the next one would be the very interesting one would be the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So basically, we're making things smarter. Now, the distinction is artificial intelligence is an umbrella of making things smarter. And machine learning is something that we are making it smarter by learning from experience. So an example of that would be the actual application of machine learning, which is an artificial neural network. So say for CEU, meron tayong data from the past say 1907 yun, no? So let's say kung kailan yung IT program or computing program nyo, and then up to now, tapos we'll check about kung graduate ba or hindi yung student, or sige, let's say may bagsak ba siya or not. And then ang three factors natin na titignan is that you have the hours of study, you have the hours of gaming, the hours of sleep. So of course, we know now the input, ano yung hours ng study, gaming, and sleep nila. And we also have the output, kung graduate ba sila or magfi-fail ba sila or something. Now, because of that, we can actually make processing so that we can optimize this hidden layer as you know it, yung blue at green. So we will input, let's say, 1 million of data, tapos itong blues and greens will actually make modeling will be processed so that it will create some, we call it weights, so that if ever you have three factors, madedetermine natin kung sige, gagraduate ba siya or hindi. So say we have the current student now. Let's say si Marie Chris. Marie Chris is current student of CEU. Now si Marie Chris, meron siyang hours of study, meron siyang hours of gaming, and then we have hours of sleep. And because we have already made a model, makalalaman natin na potentially gagraduate ba siya or may challenges ba na nangyayari sa kanya. But of course, this is arbitrary, but you have the gist na it is smarter than the statistical technique that we've used to. And then one part example of how AI is changing the industry is in terms of Dota 2. So if you know about Mobile Legends Bang Bang, you also know probably about Dota. So it is a 5 versus 5 game, so player versus player. But in this case, OpenAI 5, which is an AI that is built on machine learning processes, is being kinalaban niya yung mga players ng actual Dota 2. So it's player versus AI actually. And what's interesting is that AI was actually able to beat human in terms of the competition. Though you can say that there are limitations kasi mayroon tayong kinuha from the actual Dota 2 mechanics. So walang we say it runes, walang neutral creeps and all. So merong limitations, but in a way we are still able to defeat, or the OpenAI was still able to defeat human players, professional at that. So how do they do that? They trained their AI to about 10,000 years of game against itself. So that's really too much. I mean, in terms of if ikaw yung maglalaro, you'll see that you can have 24 hours per day, and then ilang years to. So, and then we're talking about 10,000 years, so hindi lang siya days. And then Bill Gates actually tweeted that AI bots are able to beat human, and then that's a big deal. Big deal siya because if you will see, if you will just have one AI making something on itself, then that's actually cool. But for AI to communicate with another AI, in this case, we have 5 AIs communicating with each other towards a certain goal of defeating the human player. This is actually quite impressive. So the use cases of AI and ML are vast. So for Shopee, they use it for recommendation. So for example, tumingin ka lang ng let's say shampoo sa Shopee, then more often than not, makakita mo din mayroong recommendation about soap, mayroong recommendation about toiletries and all. So ganyan siya because it's learning from the past buying patterns of its users. For example, also for Google, you have better search. So sabi natin, magsa-search tayo, tapos Google would say, did you mean that something? Because Google know that you might mean something else. And then for Twitter, it is now tailored according to your preferences, according to your interactions. So say for BTS fans, so if palagi kang nag-check ng mga BTS something contents, actually Twitter would know that, and then in the future, you will be provided with tailored tweets about BTS and something. And then for BDO, they have customized their customer service experience by using chatbots. So sa Facebook, mayroon silang chatbot, and then they've also utilized AI ML in their backend processing for automation and all. Now, the next emerging uh, challenges is trend is the blockchain. So, um, mas alam natin yung blockchain in terms of the cryptocurrency. So kung sino man yung may mga Axie dyan, sana all sa inyo, no? Axie, medyo mahal na siya ngayon. But the underlying technology behind Axie and other cryptocurrencies are on the blockchain. So blockchain is a shared immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transaction and tracking assets within a business network. So these assets might actually be tangible, like the car, the a house or something, and might not be intangible. It might be intangible, like cryptocurrency. So what happens is that, for example, in terms of transaction, we'll just look into the land title. So pag bibili ka po ng titulo, you more often than not you will be provided with a copy of the land title by the owner. So photocopy lang. Tapos you will now check the land registration authority to check if yung copy na yon is legitimate. Yun ba yung current owner? So if titignan mo sa land registration authority, you will have you will know na sige, yung last owner nito is actually the owner talaga. So you will have that privilege of okay, sige, siya nga, so legitimate to. But in the centralized in the centralized service, you will see that the land registration authority is in the central layer. But in terms of decentralization, all of the nodes in the computer can actually see if yung land title na yon is the current or not. Now, in terms of a blockchain, how does it work? So say if A wants to send B a Bitcoin, so ang mangyayari is that it will go into the second step, wherein the transaction will be represented as a block. Now, the block will be broadcasted to the network, to all the network in the say sa chain mo or sa blockchain mo, and then they will approve it, and then they can actually also disapprove it in any case. And then if approved naman siya, then it will be mapuput siya into the chain of the blocks, what we call it. That's why it's blockchain. And then the transaction will now be the end put will be we will have a successful transaction. So nata-transfer na yung data mo. So the use cases will be in finance as well as basically in cryptocurrency. Even in the banking industry, they are utilizing it as well. You can also see it in the supply chain, healthcare, and voting system. So as a recap, we have trends in cloud computing, API, IoT, big data analytics, AI, ML, and then blockchain. And also other trends that you might actually see also separately is the hybrid security mesh, virtual and augmented reality, hyper automation, and quantum computing. And before I end, I would like to thank the free licenses na ginamit ko for this slide. So you have presentation template, photographs, and icon from flaticon.com. So that is shaping the future IT trends and beyond. So there are a lot of trends that we have in the IT industry, and we just have to adapt, innovate, and grow. So I think I'll entertain some questions from our audience now.
Thank you so much, Sir Jonel, for that detailed and knowledgeable talk. I hope Sir Jonel has added value to your essential knowledge when it comes to our latest IT trends today. And I hope you can grab that chance.
Now let's proceed with the Q&A session. Okay, so let's browse into our comments. Okay, now we have a question from Hosh. How does the use of machines and automation affect the labor force in the IT industry?
Well, you can actually say that it will have a negative impact in a way because, for example, processing in terms of big data, for example, noon ang nangyayari is that when you filter or you make some processes in the back end to filter, say, transactions that are legit or not, you will actually have a labor force separately to check for that. But now, in terms of automating is using machine learning automation, yung workforce na yun are now being replaced by this AI. So it will have an effect, of course, for those labor, but you can actually see that in terms of business insight and value, it will have a significant effect on them because it means that their cost will be reduced, and then there will be um, faster transactions for them. So essentially, making businesses grow. So on the labor part, it would have negative effect. So that's why, if I may say so, that's why it's pretty important to check or to upskill our human resources, for us, the laborers or the end users, to know all these things, so that we will also be competitive in a way.
All right, thank you for that insight, Sir Jonel, for that one. Okay, so we have another question from Jaden Cruz. Does the app using API stores the data of users who connects with their account with their other accounts?
Well, the source the data of users who connects with their other account. I stores the data of users who connects with their other account. Well, in a way, you can see accounts differently, no? So say you have accounts, then an application would have no bearing as to you are both. So you'll see account A and account B separately. So mostly in terms of the current application development, hindi sila nagko-communicate. So account A would be for account A. So for example, when you're using API, that would be just account A. And then if they are exposed, or for example, nang nangyari kanina sa Pinterest or Google, it will just expose something that you've said public. Nalalaman mo naman kasi yun dun eh. So nakikita mo yan, especially sa Google App Play, sinasabi doon na this application is requesting for your email or your address or your other information. Then if you will agree to that, then they can be exposed to that particular services. So unless it is necessary, and unless you're providing consent, then hindi sila nag-uusap. So walang, in terms of storage, nasa-store siya, but in terms of communicating with other services, hindi po siya nangyayari.
Okay, thank you, Sir Janelle, for that very detailed and very useful information regarding the API. So for those people who connects their accounts with other accounts, make sure that you don't share, or you don't. If you think that that data is very private, do not allow or be wary of what you are sharing online. Okay, so again, we have a question from Hosh. I think this is interconnected with the her question or his question a while ago. So, which industries in the Philippines do you think will be fully automated in the next 5 years, if meron po?
Well, I think I'm not really sure, no, pero at the top of my head, I can see at least in terms of the paperworks. So if makikita natin as mentioned sa banking, there are a lot of paperworks actually because of essentially regulatory requirements. But these papers can actually be augmented using AI. So siniscan na lang nila, tapos they'll check according to some factors if this is legit or merong problema. So in terms of the back-end office requirements, so I think the industry will have IT industry will have an effect on that one. And I think also I will have um, it sa atin sa education system, it will have an impact kasi ngayon gumagamit na tayo ng different tools. So hindi naman tayo nagsa-stream dati, hindi tayo nagpo-produce ng videos dati sa mga teachers, but now you're utilizing it. So education sector will have a great benefit on this one, and the logistics sector, of course. So you will see a lot of shopping now online. So hindi na siya yung on-premise na pupunta ka pa sa mall. So andun yung, I think, opportunities na you can see that there will have an impact in the Philippines, at least in the next coming years.
All right, thank you, Sir Janelle, for that. For that insight regarding to the fully automated businesses in the Philippines. Okay, so let's browse if there are more questions. All right, I think that's the last question for Sir Janelle. Um, thank you, Sir Jonel, again for all the lessons and the inspirations you've shared with us, especially for those latest IT trends today that they can literally or they can really leverage when they graduate, or even now that they can use while they're studying. So, I hope this has been a fun and knowledgeable learning session for everyone. To for our closing word, Kenneth, take it away.
So now to give us the closing remarks, may I call on the virtual floor Computer Education Program Head and ICT Coordinator for CEU Malolos, Dr. Jasandi Tamayo.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our head in the Computer Education Department, we want to express our gratitude to the people behind the success of this event, Stack Trek, Mr. King Bartolome, Miss Haifa Karina, and Miss Casey Kalunot. Thank you for this opportunity. Our speakers, Mr. AJ Avanez and Mr. Jonel Getigan, thank you so much. Indeed, we have learned a lot from both of you today. To the working committees headed by Mr. David Christian Kalalang, the JPCS officers and advisors of the three campuses, CEU Malolos, Manila, and Makati, our MCs, Kenneth Silio and Mr. King, thank you for hosting the event. And our consultants, Dr. Maria Dina P. Aviñante and Dr. Elisa Ayo. And of course, to our students, faculty members, alumni, thank you for the continued support to our activities. Once again, good morning and God bless us all. Thank you.
For closing remarks.
All right. So before we end this session, here's an announcement from StackLeague. So our last event for this month of September will be happening tomorrow at September 28th at 6 p.m. The DASC for Career Path is a StackLeague and Workbank career session. For those who are not, or if you haven't registered yet, visit our official FB page, facebook.com/StackLeague, to get the registration link to our upcoming events.
And for announcements for CEU, I would like to remind everyone to kindly continue in supporting JPCS and other CEU events, and later on today we will be having another webinar. Moving on, we would also like to thank Sir AJ and Sir Jonel for taking the time to share with us your expertise and knowledge in both career and technological landscape.
Again, thank you everyone for joining us at StackLeague University Series CEU edition. If you also know someone who should be part of the league, invite them to register now at stockleague.com. See you at the next StackLeague event. Happy lunch and have a productive week ahead, everyone.